In this demonstration, we are now going to take a look at Azure Monitor and Azure Alerts from the Azure portal. And in the portal, there are a couple of ways to access monitoring. First of all, we can access it from our favorites by clicking Monitor on the left, which is there by default. If you don't have it there, simply click All Services, go ahead and type in Monitor, and that will bring up Azure Monitor for you. So you can click into it here. And while we're in this area, you'll see Monitor and Visualize Metrics, Query and Analyze Logs, Set up Alert and Actions, much like we covered in the previous lecture. But before we dive into it from this point of view, it's also worth noting that if I want to get at it from a specific object, perhaps I've got a virtual machine already built and I just want to look at metrics of that VM without having to go through the monitoring view, I can go over to my virtual machines, select my VM. In my case, I've got a VM that's pre-built here, so VM01. And on the left-hand side, if I scroll down, you'll see monitoring, and we've got alerts, metrics, etc. here as well. So there's a couple of places to get to it, directly from Monitor or directly from the object itself. But we will start in Monitor first of all. So we'll click Monitor, and on the right-hand side, let's go ahead and explore metrics first of all, and opens up the metrics pane. Now, sometimes it's a little hard to see here in the dark scheme, so you can go to your settings and just change it to a lighter scheme inside of Azure, whatever your preference is. But once we've got that up, now what I need to do is choose the subscription I want to pull my metric from. So in my case, I've just got the one subscription, my Visual Studio Enterprise one in this demonstration. So that's what I'm going to pull my metrics from. I need to choose a resource group. So I'm going to choose the one that my virtual machine is in, which is AZ-demo. I could select all if I wanted to. And then the resource types that I want to pull from as well. So I could narrow this down and choose specific services I care about. Perhaps I just want to, look at virtual machines. But in my case, again, the subscription I'm looking at, I don't have much I need to filter on. So I'm going to go ahead and just select everything there and then select our virtual machine, which is right here on the bottom, VM01. And then this will pull up the metrics for that specific object. So in my case, I've got a few things here: CPU credits consumed and remaining. That's specific to B series VMs, so nothing you need to worry about too much right here. But then I've got other metrics like data disk, reads, writes. If I go down, I've got network in and out. I've got queues. I've got a very common one that we want to look at, which is percentage CPU. So I can choose CPU percentage, and you can see already, 0.26%. This VM isn't really doing much. You can see it along the bar here, what it predicted it did in the past, and then what it's doing right now in the solid blue bar on the right. Now I can zoom in a little bit there by saying I don't want to look at the last 24 hours. Well, I just power this machine on. That's why it's kind of predicting and showing that blue dotted line there, because it doesn't really have history for that area. So I can go and select the last 30 minutes, and then we'll start to see something that makes a little bit more sense, like a virtual machine that's just been powered on. It's still got very low CPU utilization. I can go back in and click this VM% CPU. I can also change the aggregation, so I don't have to just look at the average. I can look at the min, I can look at the max. These are all options available to you. So you can choose how you want to, display that information. You can also choose if you want it to be in a line chart, if you want it to be in, say, a bar chart. So you can just look at the CPU over time. Depending on how you're troubleshooting, perhaps you're in a war room scenario, this is where you can sort of get, different views of that data and present it differently. Now, perhaps I want to put this on my dashboard. Perhaps I really care about CPU on this VM. This is something I'm looking at a lot. Well, I can click Pin to Dashboard, and I can pin to the current dashboard or select another dashboard. I'm just going to pin it to the current one, and then I'm going to go ahead and click Pin to Dashboard. I could also click Dashboard on the left-hand side here, but this is a shortcut. I just click Pin to Dashboard. And then here is my dashboard. Again, I can create new dashboards if I want to, but if I scroll to the right-hand side, here is that widget that's now on my dashboard. And if I want to, I can edit this dashboard as well. So I can move this guy around. So I can move him under, this section. I can move this around. It's really just a canvas for you to, ultimately play with and put whatever monitors you care about on there. To create new dashboards, I click this plus sign. That creates my new dashboard. And I can also upload and download dashboards as well, which is really handy for sharing things between colleagues. But that's basically, the dashboard created there. I've got my metric, my CPU metric that I've got there. All very well and good, but what happens if I want to see a little bit more? Well, let's go back over to the virtual machine itself and select VM01. I don't really want to go through monitor every single time, so I'm going to scroll down on the left-hand side here, and I can check metrics directly from in here, and you can see source is already filled in, the namespace is already filled in, and I just choose my metric there. Well, going back even further, if I scroll to the top of this area and select the overview for my virtual machine, and this is the same for a lot of other Azure services as well, and I scroll down on the right hand side, Microsoft has created pre-canned widgets for you associated with the object that it thinks you might want to look at. So, the CPU average, that's the one we just created manually, that's available there. If I want to look at network throughput, that's available to me on the right, and same with disk operations as well. So all of these are available there. And again, if I want to on my dashboard, let's say I want this network one, I can simply click the pin option, and that pins it directly to the dashboard for me as well. Now, what if I want to start alerting on things like that? Well, again, we'll go to the monitoring view. So we'll select monitor, and we'll go in this time and click create alert. So slightly different screen here. What we need to do is create rules first of all. So if I want to create a rule for that virtual machine, perhaps when the CPU exceeds 90%, I will select that resource. So this is the resource I want to monitor first of all. I select to filter, so I can filter on virtual machines. I choose VM01 and I click done. So right now that is my object that I care about right now. The condition is what do I want to signal on basically, what signal do I want to alert on. So in my case, it's got some suggested ones for us. I want to choose %CPU, and then I can choose to show the history over a longer period of time if I want to. Right now it's just showing the last 6 hours. If I scroll down, so there's the metric graph, much like we saw if we created the metric monitor that we saw previously. But here is the alert condition. So the condition greater than the time aggregation, same options there as well. So we've got average, maximum, minimum, total for CPU. So I can average it out and say, okay, anytime it goes over 90%, so whenever the CPU is greater than 90% over the last 5 minutes and check every 1 minute, that's what I want to take an action on basically. So now if I scroll further down and look at action groups, this is what I want to do with that alert. So let's say the alert is fired. Who do I want to notify? What do I want to do? And so I have to create an action group if I haven't got one already. If I already had an action group, I could select an existing one, but I'll create a new one for right now. And give it an action group name. Perhaps I want to email IT team as an example. And I'll just call this one email IT. And here basically I'm going to choose my resource group where I want to basically keep this action group. So I can choose to keep it in my default activity log alerts, which it will create for me. And then I need to choose the action. So let's say again we want to email as our first action and choose the action type. And these are really important. And you can see there are a number of them here. So we've got email, SMS, push, voice. So if I select this one, this is where I would come in here and choose, okay, I want to email help@helpdesk.com, just a fake email I'm putting in there right now. I can choose to text message somebody, etc. All of those options are available there, and I'm just going to choose email for right now. But I could also go in and do other things. Let's say I wanted to cut a ServiceNow ticket. I want an incident ticket because this is a really important, alert for me. I want to make sure that we log that in our ITIL system. And so I would choose to use the ITSM connector in this example, and then I would go ahead and use my ITSM connection that I would have created separately as part of a ServiceNow, say, integration. So that's another option there. In addition, you also have the option of automation runbooks, and these are key. I often see a lot of people starting to use these now, where you can choose to run a runbook that you already have, and there's some already created for you now. So you've got restart VM, stop VM, scale up, scale down, remove VM. So perhaps in this particular virtual machine by itself, I've hit the CPU alarm. I want to change it to a higher instance with more CPU. I could do that as well. So there's a lot of options here, in terms of the action group, not just send the email, but I could add multiple actions. I could email somebody, I could create a ticket, and I could say restart the VM if I wanted to as well. All of these things, you need to decide what you want to do based on your specific scenario, but lots of options available to you. In my case, I'm just going to choose the email option, so I'm going to click OK there. It's going to create that new resource group where it'll put those activity log alerts, and then we'll create that for you. Then I just need to give the alert rule name, so I can say, CPU over 90%. So I've got my group. In fact, I need to go back and select that group, which created it, but I haven't selected it yet. So now I've got the group selected, CPU over 90%, and got the percent in there. So CPU over 90, we'll call it. Can't have that character in there. And choose a description for the alert. So the CPU went over 90%, help, whatever you want to put in the description for the incident. Obviously, you'd be more professional in an enterprise scenario. Then you choose the severity. So this is, how important it is to you. If it's a Sev 0, it's normally mission critical. If it's a Sev 4, perhaps it's not that critical for you. And once you've got all that created, go ahead and enable the rule upon creation and create alert rule. This will take a little bit of time. It's essentially going to continuously monitor that virtual machine. Anytime that metric is exceeded, it will fire off that email, and you can see it's actually already completed for that specific one. Others do take a little bit more time. And with that, that concludes alerting and metrics. The final thing we just need to cover is something called diagnostic login. So if we go into virtual machines again, click VM01, and we scroll down to monitoring and choose diagnostic settings. If we look in here, you can see that Azure Monitoring collects host level metrics by default, so CPU, disk, network. But what it doesn't show us is guest level metrics. So these are the metrics. If you open up just your Windows laptop and go to the performance monitor, or on a Windows server, you've got, application logs, you've got performance logs for your CPU that Windows is detecting, the Windows operating system. The host level metrics are what Azure sees from the hypervisor. The guest level metrics are what the operating system itself sees. So we can choose to enable these guest level monitoring metrics as well. You'll pick a storage account. There's probably one already created when you created your virtual machine. You may want to centralize all of the storage account login for guest level metrics. That's a decision you will need to make as part of a wider strategy for monitoring. But for right now, I'm going to select enable guest level monitoring. And what that does, it updates the settings for that specific VM, so it can start to gather additional data from the virtual machine and report those logs in as well. And what will happen is you will get additional metrics once this piece completes. So when you go into the metrics section, when you scroll through here, you will see not just the host metrics, but also the guest level metrics as well. And you can start to choose if you just want to see what Azure's reporting or what the system is reporting as well. And with that, this concludes this demonstration. This hopefully gives you a great base in terms of monitoring. What you definitely need to know for the exam is how the metrics work, what are some of the options. So you can do averages, min, max, etc. How you can adjust, your time period to look at, and then make sure you know how action groups work. You'll probably get some questions around action groups and what's happening, maybe perhaps in a screenshot. You might need to know that it's sending an email or it's going to go off to the ITSM connector. All those things are, really important for you. But with that, this concludes this demonstration.